The college football weekend is here. That means it is time to make picks and probably miss the picks. Glad to have you with us on the College Game Day podcast for Friday, September 20th. Rece Davis, Pete Thamel, and the Stanford legend, Steve Coughlin. Stanford Steve is with us. Gentlemen, I don't know why, because I missed the first couple of weeks of the Picks podcast due to other assignments. I don't know why my record in the picks can't somehow translate into getting one single super dog, even close to right on College Game Day. I've still got the bagel for super dogs, yet I was 5-2 in the picks last week. I mean, I'm not even close in these. It's not like I'm bemoaning this play or that play. I took North Texas. I think they're called the Mean Green. I've petitioned that they change their name to the Polite Green or the Courteous Green or the Cooperative Green. They're anything but mean. My sister.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Tosh Brooks just ran for another 100 yards.
I know it was like 62-0 at halftime or whatever it was. My sister runs the library at the University of North Texas. She's much smarter than I am. She has her doctorate in library sciences. She's there. So I requested to her, I said, if you see a football player come into that library this week, I want you to kick them out. They need to get out of the library and to the practice field. I mean, it was disgraceful what they did to me. It's all about me. No, I'm kidding. But I did tell her that. She found it amusing because I gave a little shout out. You know, sometimes you throw an Easter egg in there with the super dog or any other pick. I made mention of the North Texas Library as a shout out to my sister on the show. So she appreciated that, you know, and everything. But then I told her, I said, well, I'm not having this anymore. The Courteous Green got beat by 1,000. And so let's not have the football players doing non-productive things like furthering their education when they're getting beat 1,000-2 by a team that had been scuffling like Texas Tech. And I'm saying that facetiously for all you nerds who will get bent out of shape. Oh, this is an academic endeavor. They are student athletes, which is a made-up term to stop workman's comp claims. Anyway, I've got a strategy this week for the super dog, though.
Oh, is it what did Des admit he's using? He's using
he's got some algorithm or something.
Algorithm, that's right. Algorithm.
No, I'm not doing. Mine's much more scientific than this.
Okay.
Last week before the picks, if you remember, Nick Saban said that his granddaughter told him that what he should do is pick the opposite of what he thought because apparently he hadn't been doing well. So I'm going to ask Nick if his granddaughter will just pull a super dog out of the hat for me this week, and whatever it'll take. I'll do that. I mean, can't be worse, right? I mean, look, I've taken Wyoming. They got beat by 1 billion. Taking North Texas, they got beat by 1 billion. I can't remember who the other one was, but it wasn't close either. And anyway, things have got to change, but not here on the pod. I was 5-2 last week on the pod, so we got to get going there.
There we go.
All right, let's go, Rece. Let's go. We got 2 people above 500 on the pod.
That we got 2. Steve on the pod. He's doing great on the show.
Probably more important for Steve to be good on the show.
It is. He's doing great on the show. I would say that probably what we have here is some remnants of the fridge, some of the Freon from the fridge still emitting gases here and hurting things. Let's start with a compelling Friday night game. Seems almost blasphemous that the children of the corn would be playing on a Friday night against an Illinois team that I think Bielema feels pretty good about to start. So, Pete, let's start with you. You've got Illinois at Nebraska. We're picking winners here, but for people who think about games of chance, the Cornhuskers are favored by 8 at last check.
Yes, well, there's some risk rolling into Lincoln on a Friday night. Give Brett Bielema credit; he has kind of pulled Illinois back to being on track for a really strong season, 3-0. That Kansas game last year was a huge swing for Kansas and launched them on a successful season. This time around, it looks to have done the opposite. Illinois rolls into this game 3-0, but boy, I just think Nebraska's defense is not going to give up a lot of points in this game. And I'm not saying Dylan Royal is going to throw 6 touchdown passes, but I just think with the skill they have and the defense that they have, and I still want to see Illinois play an elite defense. And I think Nebraska at this point we can say has an elite defense. So I am going to take the Children of the Corn. I would imagine there would be some beverages consumed before that Friday evening contest in Nebraska. I think it'll be a pretty good environment. So we will take the Fighting Rules. And if you are into games of chance, I would take them by more than 10.
Wow. All right. I feel pretty lucky. This is a great Friday night game as we're getting ready for Saturday. Plenty going on. Pete, you touched on what Bielema has been able to do. I love this spot for Illinois. Not one person is mentioning them in this game. They do have a ranking next to their name. Bielema has thrived in this kind of role. I'll say Nebraska wins, but closer than the experts think. Illinois covers the number.
I'm with you, Steve. I think this feels like one of those games that Illinois plays a little better than you would expect, scraps around, makes it difficult, probably comes up with a well-timed turnover to thwart a scoring opportunity for the Cornhuskers. I think Nebraska wins. I do believe that Nebraska is just going to get better and better. And
Correct.
Push comes to shove, I would probably go along with Herbstreit and say that they're going to be 7-0 headed into the Ohio State game, or maybe I should say should be, because if you're not good enough and maybe Nebraska's not quite good enough yet, that a loss would find you. If this game were in Champaign, I think I would say this is where the loss finds them, but I'm going to go Nebraska, but closer than those proverbial experts think. High noon after College Game Day on ESPN. It is the Dan Mullen Bowl. Florida and Mississippi State, both teams coming off dreadful weekends. Florida's has been well documented. Mississippi State got destroyed, had all their cowbells taken away by Toledo. Yet another Jason Candle-led performance there for Toledo. And this game is a couple of teams floundering, but different stages. Florida's wondering what comes next. Mississippi State just getting started with Jeff Lebby. I think this is a game where if Florida doesn't win this one, it's over. I know most people are saying that it's over. Florida historically, even when they've been good, they've had trouble in Starkville. Sure, Mississippi State will try to rise up and play better than it did last Saturday night. Steve, start with this one. Do you like the Gators or the Bulldogs?
Well, I said last week on College Game Day, my last stand with Florida, they cost me a 3-0 day on the board, so I am done with the Gators. There was a little smidge of opportunity for Mississippi State a couple of weeks ago when they were on the road at Arizona State. They had a chance to come back. There was a little fight. They got some receivers now. Protecting and defense, that's a whole other story. But I think Shapen and those receivers and Lebby mount up a little bit and keep this game close. I'll say Florida wins, but I'll take Mississippi State plus the points.
I really feel like this is a great
litmus test of how engaged that locker room is still with Billy Napier. Florida is better, right? And what we don't know and haven't seen is where they are right now after, 2 home blowout losses and the torrents of negativity. No fan base goes negative like the Florida fan base. I really feel like it's almost like a pro fan base in college sports. So there's 2 ways you can go with that. One is, the team endures and turtles, or they bounce back and go put on a performance on the road. Pound for pound, Florida is better. From what I have heard out of Gainesville this week, I think the response is here for Florida. I don't feel like they will turtle. Feel like they will go to Starkville. They will avoid a Zook moment. Remember, he went there in 2004, lost, came back and was fired in late October, which at the time was like shocking. Fired in late October. Now, I think it was 2022. We had 5 power conference coaches fired by October 2nd. So, look, the Napier thing is inevitable. The whens and the hows. This could extend it and give them some hope in life and give him a chance to get that program with some traction. So I think Florida wins and covers.
Pete, I agree. I've been on record while it appears that this is not going to work and that the change is inevitable. I remain steadfast, and I think Billy Napier is a solid football coach. It just hasn't worked. Happens sometimes. But I think it will work in Starkville this week. I hear what Steve's saying about this, shaping in the offense, but I think Florida will respond. I think it won't be pretty. I think they'll probably barely win by enough. But this feels like a 27-20 type of game that I think Florida will win and show at least that he's had the ability not to make them or that they won't quit on him is a better way to phrase it. And I think Florida wins the game and wins by enough.
Reese, one quick thing. I don't want to make excuses for Billy Napier. You guys love to get your opinion also. But all that was going on last week, and then on Friday to hear that the quarterback that they prepared for all week, Wigman, wasn't possibly going to play, and then you bring in the factor of the other quarterback coming, that had to be a nightmare scenario trying to prep for a running quarterback, and then you saw what happened. But I just pointed that out, that it just keeps snowballing for Florida. It'd be nice to see them get their feet on the ground.
Well, and the other thing too is on the other side of that, kid hadn't played, at least not much, and then to still come in and put the performance like that sort of does two things. It sort of really shines a negative light on Florida, and it makes you wonder what Mike Elko might do, as they go forward here after Marcel Reed played really well.
Hinted at some
Wally Pipping on game day on Saturday. He was not shy about that.
Yeah.
I want to say Marcel Reed played pretty well in the bowl game last year.
He did.
300 yards passing. He came in in relief for the injured Robinson, I think, and was very good. So interesting moment in time here.
Right, for sure. Another quarterback change. If all else fails, try changing the quarterback, and Michigan will against USC, as Alex Orji will get the start for the Wolverines. And one would think that now USC and Danton Lynn, their defensive coordinator, has had some time to prepare for a healthy dose of not only Michigan man running, but quarterback run with Orji, who's a big, strong, fast guy with a strong arm, but still honing his skills in the passing game. Trojans favored by a little less than a touchdown, a rare meeting outside of the Rose Bowl, first B1G conference game for the Trojans. What happens in the big house, Peter?
Well, it's interesting. Orji didn't win the job because he's clearly limited in the pass game, right? And there was a reason why I think he attempted one pass coming into this season, and the Michigan coaches, by their decision, telegraphed the fact that they just didn't trust him to move the ball enough. And they felt like a limited pass game was going to hold their offense back, so they gave Davis Warren a crack. It didn't work. I think this game is a bit of a slog. I don't think USC is going to be able to spin it up and down the field like they did against LSU. I think Michigan has a better defense than LSU, but I just don't have the faith in Michigan's offense to score with them, even though I don't think USC scores over 30. So I'm going to take the Trojans, but I don't think it'll be like kind of the same march through Atlanta by Sherman that Texas did through there.
I cannot wait for this game because USC, you want to welcome to the Big Ten moment, you're getting it. You better buckle up. You better bring it for 60. If everybody remembers what Michigan did in the second half at Penn State last year, that's what you're getting here. There's going to be every kind of run play thrown to mankind by the Wolverines. And Pete, don't think Michigan's defense is better than LSU's after seeing LSU's in person. But the guys they have at each level on the defensive line, I think Barham's been tremendous as a linebacker for them. And then obviously Will Johnson in that secondary. Miller Moss's first road start. He's going to get everything thrown at him. Now, I think Lincoln Riley's been in this situation plenty of times, knows how to get his quarterback in rhythm early on. But again, it's going to be 60 minutes. Danton Lynn, I think, should be fine. But just the idea of lining up for 60 and hitting every single play, we're going to learn a lot about USC. I think they pull it out by a field goal. I'll take Michigan plus the points. Low scoring.
I think SC's going to have more success on offense than you think.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to go in there and score 35 on that defense. I don't think they're quite what Texas is on offense.
26?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they get, 26, 27, 28, somewhere in there. USC historically has had Michigan's number. Now, a lot of it's been in the Rose Bowl, and there have been some great USC teams. I think they have one win in 60 years against the Trojans. Came in 1989. One of the big what if seasons. Michigan, had that elusive span where they couldn't win the national championship before they finally won a share in 97, and then obviously won it last year. But that team that beat SC was looking back. They lost on a walk-off field goal against Notre Dame, who won the national championship. They lost by 1 to Miami, a game that they blew a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter. And they had a tie that year. They fumbled on Iowa's 1-yard line with just over a minute to go and wound up tying the game. Then they beat USC. A little history lesson, which I like to present from time to time. The precious present goes like this. It's sort of the same old song and dance for Michigan. They don't have enough on offense to get it done. I think they'll run the ball with some degree of success. I think USC's tougher up front than they were last year. Just from a technique scheme standpoint, Danton Lynn has given them a little more toughness than we've seen on defense, a little more soundness in tackling. So I think what you get is Miller Moss and the offense, Woody March running it enough, the receivers making enough plays, probably opposite Will Johnson, but making enough plays to put 27, 28 points on the board. And I'm not convinced that Michigan can match it. I would probably, if I were playing games of chance, I would probably take Michigan and the points, but I'm pretty convicted that USC is going to win the game. Great game in the Big 12. Couple of experienced teams. Assuming that Cam Rising, and Pete may have information on this, if Cam Rising can go at quarterback,
he will.
Cam Rising against Alan Bowman, older at the quarterback position than the Colts-Bears matchup over the weekend too, with Anthony Richardson and Caleb.
Much older, actually, right?
Yeah, pretty significantly older, almost a combined age of 50, 14 years of college football experience all told, and both guys have had a lot of injuries factored in. Oklahoma State, one of the most experienced teams in the country. Utah, I've been told throughout the offseason, is going to set the standard in the Big 12 for physicality, and they probably will. But I have yet to see a fight that Mike Gundy's team will back down from. Steve, what do you think? Utes, newcomers to the Big 12, or one of the staples of the conference in Oklahoma State and Stillwater?
First off, if Commissioner Yormark is listening, he needs to trademark Rece Davis's saying for the Big 12 this year, and that is not the deepest, but the widest. Got to get that on a T-shirt. I mean, come on, Big 12 conference. I mean, you're looking for anything here, and for some notoriety. Love the matchup. Pete says with conviction, Cam Rising is going to start. We don't really get that, especially after Pete's performance last year and what we had to do to him every week to update Cam Rising. And I know he had a ton of fun with that. But no, I look at Oklahoma State, though, the way they've gone about this and the way Gundy has been with his team. The tricky game against Arkansas where they made the most of Arkansas's mistakes and came back. I think Bowman has been a lot more accurate with the deep ball, and that's helped them because Ali's not close to what he was when he got on that run, running the football. Now I'm interested to see this Utah offense because all offseason I heard about what they did in the portal, how they weren't going to, the running back was going to be by committee, and Cam's got some toys to play with on the outside, and he's going to throw it. So I think that plays in Oklahoma State's hands. I don't understand the line movement, too. It opened up as Oklahoma State a favorite. Now they're a small dog. I'll take the home team to win the game, Oklahoma State.
I am going to go with the Utes.
I think this is a slog, and I just trust Utah in a slog. Now, look, Mike Gundy's given us plenty of reasons, and he's won a ton of close games. But I just feel like the run game for Utah with Bernard, with Mitchell, with Stanley, and then with Rising, quite frankly, who is not exactly he's not exactly a gazelle out there, but he can go pick you up. He can go pick you up a first down. I think the loss of Colin Oliver is huge for Oklahoma State. He's the heartbeat of that defense, their best defensive player. I feel like Utah will be able to just get a push, and Rising can do enough in the air. He obviously had the hand injury. He warmed up with a glove last week, so it'll be interesting to see if he has a glove or not a glove on that throwing hand. And so we'll get a full read on that. But I think Utah's offense can just push Oklahoma State around enough to win, and if you do engage in games of chance, cover the small line.
To Pete's point, Oliver had 6 sacks, 15.5 tackles for loss last season, that experienced defense, and in close games, Oklahoma State 5-1 in one score games last year. I think this is going to be an old school slobber knocking game. There'll probably be some explosive plays just in terms of kind of out of nowhere. You get nothing, boom. Somebody's going to pop one. Bowman has been much better. So when you can't really decide which way to go in a game, I think there are 2 factors. One, home field and the paddle people going in as Utah starts with its Big 12 journey with a road game. And while I have every confidence in the world that there is no appliance that Kyle Whittingham couldn't fix with his bare hands, we saw Mike Gundy interrupt his own news conference and go over and fix a giant drink cooler by doing what most people try to do when you have to fix things, and that's just unplug it. So I would say that Gundy and the Cowboys will be plugged in. I'm going to take Oklahoma State, and if you're telling me also that that I'm getting a couple of points with the paddle people in Stillwater, I'll take it. I'll go with the Pokes. I think one of the most fascinating games on the docket will be in prime time on ESPN Saturday night. Miami and South Florida. There's going to be the natural comparison, Pete, between what South Florida did for 3 quarters in Tuscaloosa and how they might stack up against Miami. Get dangerous daisy chaining things. But I think there are more South Florida students that are going to be at this game than maybe at any time in their history, certainly in their recent history.
Sure.
They've opened up another section of Raymond James Stadium in anticipation of that, and there will be a Pro Bowls crowd there. Alex Golesh and the offense pretty dangerous here. I doubt that they're able to slow down and stop Cam Ward. I think this will be a high-octane, high-scoring game. Who wins the game? USF, Miami.
Well, remember in
Hattiesburg last week, South Florida found themselves down 14-0. They can't fall asleep early in the game here because Miami Miami has the dynamism to really jump on you and not let you come back. So 2 years in a row, South Florida's sort of defining regular season moments have come by pulling Alabama into a mud puddle. And I think they will be able to do the same thing with Miami because they do have the ability to counter and score quick. Great showcase for Byron Brown, who did not play great against Bama, but is one of the top 3 Group of 5 quarterbacks in the country. I think a little of that Raymond James magic, and it allows South Florida to hang around, but I don't think they pull out the victory.
I just can't wait to watch this matchup up front. South Florida's got some tough guys on the D-line. I thought you saw Alabama when they were going back and forth with personnel. Obviously, it wasn't the O-line that went to Madison, but they got some guys up front, and Golesh wants to go fast. So we're going to see how that Miami defense reacts to tempo, to all that hurry-up stuff, and they got some guys, like you mentioned Brown. I expect them to play well. Reese, I think there's going to be more students at this game than there might have been combined the whole year last year for South Florida. So. It's a big deal. It's awesome. I love these kinds of games because you're going to get. I think South Florida was in a tough spot last week. Reese, you mentioned the look ahead, but there's always that week after effect of playing Alabama. It's documented what happens to teams, especially the non-Power 5 ones. But I believe Cam Ward gets it done. 16.5. I'll say South Florida loses by 13.
I think Miami wins the game, and I think it looks like a blowout out of the gates. South Florida gets it back close and actually threatens, as saying, hey, get a stop here, get the ball back and score. And now it's down to, a 3-point game or something like that. And they just don't quite have enough to do it. So barring Miami really helping them, I'm going to say that Miami wins the game relatively comfortably, a comfortable 14-point win, which some will view as not quite enough. I'll say Miami wins it by 14. game where College Game Day is going to be prime time on ABC Saturday night. First game in the SEC for Oklahoma. Josh Heupel, who won a national championship as a quarterback at Oklahoma, leads the Volunteers back in Tennessee with national championship aspirations. Oklahoma has had a couple of shaky weeks. First against Houston, then against Tulane when they were really threatened. And now here comes the Big Orange, and Heupel unceremoniously fired after the end of the 2014 season as offensive coordinator, the well-documented scars that remain from that. Tennessee and Oklahoma, Steve, what do you see?
Defense. When these two teams, you don't think of it, but Pete, I'm sure you're going to have a report, but the talent on the defensive side and how many scouts are going to be there for this is awesome. When you look at Oklahoma, now we get into, not you're welcome to the SEC, but now we're, against these SEC teams, because now the road starts. Plenty has been made about how much tougher their SEC schedule was compared to Texas's, and it starts with this one. But they are at home. When you look at Tennessee, the thing that sticks out is now they have a defense to go with that offense. They cause plenty of problems with the talent they have up front. And so I believe the defenses play better than the offenses. Really interested in what Nico brings to the table. What has stuck out, and it's funny, people have asked, what does he remind you of? The guy I keep going back to as far as accuracy, not anything else, just accuracy as such a young dude throwing the football, is Sam Bradford. When Sam Bradford came in as a youngster, did he replace – I was trying to go back to the Oklahoma. Was that Hibble?
Nate Hibble was right at the end of Heupel. Then he played from 2000 to 2002. So he was in there, and Heupel finished in 2000 and won it. And then right around there was Jason White right after that. And then Bradford came a little bit later.
But what stuck out was Sam Bradford was the accuracy. And when you look at the throws that are expected for Nico to make by Heupel in that offense, they're not easy. I mean, those wide receivers are outside the numbers, and he's throwing quick screens there. Then he's throwing deep over routes, and I love the way he's used the middle of the field. I think at the end, the Tennessee offense, because of the run game and the explosive, they're going to pop one. And Oklahoma's ability to overcompensate for things, they have played. It's not Tennessee, but Tulane did some nice things offensively too. So I think Tennessee pulls it out, but a touchdown is too much. This is the first time Oklahoma has been a touchdown underdog since I was a sophomore in college. 1998. Wow. 1998 was the last time they were a touchdown underdog. So I think it's a close game. I think this is the best Oklahoma plays in all these tough matchups. It's going to be right there for the taking. Jackson Arnold will play well. Oklahoma's defense with that crowd, knowing how much they've looked forward to this moment. The place will be great. But Tennessee at the end, I'll say by a field goal.
I think respect Steve's analysis a lot. It's always hard
to just say a very good SEC team is going to get blown out at home, right? That's just always hard. Like look at the SEC road games we saw last weekend as empirical evidence of that. Georgia's better than Kentucky. They barely got out of there. LSU's a little better than South Carolina. That thing was just a wild whiplash ping pong match. That said, what I have seen from Oklahoma this year on offense, especially that offensive line, I don't have faith in them hanging long-term here. So I'm not saying Tennessee's going to win 51-7, but I think they're going to go, and I think they're going to win, and I think they're going to win authoritatively. So I like them and the cover. And of course, anytime you pick a road favorite in a league game, you go and clinch in the fetal position until it happens.
Maybe so. And I don't want to discourage any future College Game Day hosts, but home teams, depending on how you rate Dublin, home teams are 0 for the season. A&M lost to Notre Dame, Michigan lost to Texas, and then South Carolina lost to LSU. The game, this is probably it's somewhere in between Texas, Michigan, South Carolina, LSU in terms of who's better. I think Texas, in my judgment, was significantly better and remains so than Michigan. LSU was a bit better than South Carolina. This is in between. I think Tennessee's better than Oklahoma, and the problems up front will be huge. Now, Tennessee's been rotating 10 to 12 guys, as I've mentioned a few times, on the D line. You may see that streamlined a little bit more early, more snaps for the frontline guys. Talked to Amari Thomas yesterday. Obviously, James Pierce. They've got pass rushers. The other side is what you wonder about, because I had a coach tell me this week that he doesn't think Oklahoma has the cover guys to match up with Tennessee, and because of that, the multitude of different looks that Brent Venables can present and the various zone blitzes that he will see will test Nico Iamaleava to see exactly how good he is at recognizing, finding the right receiver. I think he'll prove to be plenty good enough. I think Tennessee wins, not as decisively as Texas beat Michigan, but soundly. And Heupel walks out from his alma mater, his old stomping grounds, not far away from where he still has family living, and it will be a good night on Rocky Top for all of those dressed in orange. And our final pick of this week, ESPN Plus, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, when the greatest name in quarterbacking will make an appearance in Austin, Texas. The number one name when you think of quarterbacks. And also Arch Manning's going to try to see if he can get a win in his first start against the great General Booty. So Arch Manning against General Booty, a matchup for the ages right there in terms of quarterback royalty. Pete, what say you? Texas, I think we're all going to pick Texas to win. So what do you expect to see from Arch in what will be his first start?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend.
Monroe is better. I want to give Brian Vincent credit for that. Yes. They took a big leap. They had a huge win over UAB. And that was Brian Vincent had been the interim at UAB, so obviously that one must have felt good. But I can't see ULM keeping this game close, and I think all eyes on Arch. There's a difference mentality-wise, knowing you're going to be the starter all week, as opposed to running in from the sideline to do it, right? So let's look for Arch to take a step, right? He went from third string to second string. Now he's going from mop-up guy to starter. If you wanted to pick a runway for his path to start, this would be it, right? Come in, low-stakes game, can make some mistakes, and we've seen continual improvement. The spring game was a big step forward for him. Obviously, he looked electric against UTSA. So I think we see another step forward from him. We all said this on various channels here, that he is not going to come take Quinn Ewers' job. That's just not rooted in any kind of reality. Quinn Ewers is one of the 5 best players in college football, but it is exciting to see what could be next for Texas when Quinn Ewers goes off to the draft after this season. And I think we see Arch take a step forward. And I'm going to take General Booty in the points, though. Let's hope he must hate Texas from his time in Oklahoma. So let's hope we get some Booty's last stand here.
I agree with Pete on General Booty in taking the points there. But guys, I can't say enough. Like, this is like an offensive mind and game plan. Like, we know how good Sark. Like, I don't think I would take anyone else in this scenario for Arch's first start than Sark. Like, knowing how, what he brings to the table as a play caller. We know how he scripts everything, but also scripts, the second half. Like, the idea of what he's going to be able to get out of here and what he's going to be able to dial up, and your coaches always think ahead, like, hey, next year we'll be able to do this. Well, you know what? You got it right now. So I think it's an awesome deal. Night game in Austin. Like, it's going to be a really, really cool scene for what a lot of people have waited for, to see Arch start a game. So I'm really interested to see what Sark dials up to show off Arch in that great offense. I have been impressed with Texas's defense. The athleticism is insane. Everybody talked about how they're going to replace the 2 guys in the middle. It's been fantastic. What they've looked like, how they tackled an open space has really been an improvement. But I'll take the 45 points.
I won't. They say Texas wins and covers. Our friend Pat McAfee has pointed out a few times, he's a Manning. And what he means by that is that the fans are going to get wound up. I agree with you guys, what you're saying, Sark and Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn Ewers is a sensational player. I think Arch is pretty sensational too. He has developed himself physically from his time, as Pete has pointed out, physically last year, not ready to come in and be a freshman starter. Mentally, obviously, he's been around this his entire life. They've, the family has worked with him not only to keep him grounded as being a good guy and a good young man, but also to develop into a great player, which I have every confidence in the world that he is going to be. And I think Sark's going to showcase him Saturday night. And I think he's going to put up big numbers. Monroe is improved, but I think that they're going to be on the unfortunate business end of making sure that there is development that comes in the process of Arch Manning. I looked up because I told Pete didn't know this, Steve. I think I've told you before, and Archie's grandfather probably gets tired of hearing about this from me. Archie Manning's my favorite athlete of all time. And, I was a kid, he was my guy. And, I hear all this, where in the world did the speed come from? I was like, well, it came from his grandfather. So I went looking to see, and I found this long run that Archie made. Turns out it was against Kentucky. You couldn't tell on the YouTube highlight video. So I had our ace researcher, Marissa Dowling, say, okay, Arch had the 67-yard touchdown run, hit 20.9 miles per hour. Didn't have the GPS stuff to find out just how fast Archie was.
No catapult back then?
69. No catapult to get that 69. But I found this thing, and it was shot so tight that I couldn't tell how long the run was. So I just counted the yard markers, how many, integrals of 5 yards that he crossed. And I knew it was 60 plus. Turns out 64 yards. And Arch, the grandson, now holds the family record for the longest run in college football. So I think he'll have some more highlight moments. I think they'll put up big numbers, and I think that Arch and the Longhorns will win by enough.
One of my favorite things, it's on one of the Manning documentaries. I think it's on the SEC network, and I think it's about Archie. But they used to play an alumni game at Ole Miss, like full pads. And like, this is after Archie's out of the league. And it's like grown men in their 30s, full pads. And he's running around, scrambling It is fantastic video. It's one of my favorite things I've ever seen. Like when you look back, like, everybody talks about Old Timers Day, but like Ole Miss used to get padded up for an alumni game. That was just tremendous.
Now, Steve, if Stanford decides to do that, I'm going to advise against it because of what young AJ Hawk did to our friend Kirk Herbstreit in an alumni game. Have you guys heard this story? McAfee loves telling this story when it gets AJ on there. In Centerville, Ohio, I guess they used to play the alums against the current team, some type of thing. And AJ was like a sophomore. And AJ and Pat tell this story better than anybody, much to Kirk's chagrin. Kirk was playing, and I guess, AJ was going to prove himself to the old guys. And AJ Hawk absolutely earholed Herbstreit, apparently, and made Kirk realize, hey, I'm a TV star. I don't really know why I'm doing this anymore. And that was the end of the full contact, at least according to the oft-repeated story on the McAfee show. So where did you play? Did you play Ansonia high school football? Where did you play? In Ansonia, Connecticut, a very good high school program in the state of Connecticut, maybe the best. They tell me it's the best. I haven't seen you guys play, but I've heard that it is. If they offer up, and you're a big, strong dude and terrific player, but if they offer up an alumni game, either there or on the farm, I would say respectfully decline. Remind yourself you're a TV star. You don't need to be earholed by somebody trying to make a point, some young AJ Hawk.
I will send it to Pete and he could give it out, but I will respectfully decline because of declining athleticism. I will just say that.
That's sources.
Yes.
No game time decision here.
Two words.
Yes, he's sidelined by common sense and gravity.
You know what? If you've got a suggestion for my super dog this week, given my woeful performance at this point, you can send it to me on Twitter. You can send it to me on Instagram. You can send it by carrier pigeon. You can send it any way you want. I'll take anything.
Pony Express.
Right now. Pony Express, whatever you want. I need a winner. I haven't even been lucky enough to get on bad beats with any of mine. I mean, it's been bad beats, all right. It's been bad beat downs so far. So We'll see if we can improve. Thanks for listening to the College Game Day podcast. We urge you to subscribe. We urge you to take this advice we give you on picks responsibly, because there is risk in life. And if you subscribe, you never miss an episode, or you can download wherever you prefer to get your podcast. Have a great college football weekend.